together today. Thank you. So to a little overview, today we have Daisy from No Kid Hungry talking about their summer meals database. We'll then have Jen from Lunch Assist talking all things, do a little policy post for all things summer meals. We have Gurjeet and Katie from California Department of Education for a summer meals and waivers overview. And then we will have our very own public affairs manager, Mauricio, to give us a little call to action on HR 6613, the Keeping School Meals Flexible Act. At the end, we'll have an open discussion for questions or to share best practices on summer meals. We will stop the recording before we open it up for discussion. And so let's kick it off to Daisy.
Hey. Hello, everyone. My name is Daisy Munguia-Piñon. I'm with No Kid Hungry, for those that do not know me, but I oversee Southern California, the Southern California region for the campaign. All right, next slide, Ashley. So I wanted to share that we have a lot of summer meal resources. Almost anything you can think of or need are on our Center for Best Practices website. So I put a few on here, but if you need, resources on how to communicate with your parents about changes to summer, if you're looking for a resource, understanding the waivers, knowing between SFSP and SSO requirements, what to do. We also have toolkits on marketing your summer meals program. We have templates for banners, flyers, social media posts you can do. Anything we have on our website, you're free to download it, save it to your computer, add your logo, make it your own. So we really have resources in English and Spanish, so we want to encourage you to check them out. We also have an engagement toolkit if you want to engage your local mayor in your summer meals program. So we have many, many resources. So I encourage all of you all to visit our Center for Best Practices website. And if there isn't anything on there that you're really needing for summer, reach out to us and we'll try to see if we can find it for you. Next slide. We have a few webinars that we think might be important for your summer meals operations. One has already passed, but it was Summer Meals 101. So kind of taking us back to how summer used to look like. I put the link in the slides that you can see the recording on there. And we also have another webinar tomorrow on how to promote your summer meals program at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The link is also on the slides. We also have many other recordings of past webinars that are summer meals related. Again, all at our Center for Best Practices resource webpage. And we want to remind everyone that our texting hotline has changed and our new number is text food or comida to 304-304. The way the texting hotline works is Summer Meal sponsors provide the information to CDE, and then CDE updates USDA on a weekly basis. We get our information from USDA. Unfortunately, because we oversee this texting hotline across the state, we aren't able to update individual sites if something changes or anything like that. The best way to make sure the texting hotline is up to date is making sure you have the most accurate information to CDE. But it is updated on a weekly basis for you. So these are some samples of some flyers and posters you can use to promote the texting hotline, but it's fully functioning and it's based on zip code. So just text food or comida 304-304, and based on your address, the most nearest site will pop up as a text. So it's a great way for parents to figure out where they can take their kids to get summer meals. Next slide. Also, fresh off the presses, we did a summer 22 area eligibility analysis to kind of look at how the waivers might impact the number of sites that can be open for the summer, how many students may not have access to food based on area eligibility. So I thought it was pretty interesting to share with the group. In California, there were 5,469 open sites in 2021, And this year, over 1,000 sites are likely to be ineligible to serve meals. And I chose the nearest counties to San Diego to kind of look at and compare number of sites of 2021, and if they were either eligible through census data or through eligibility school boundary data. The one thing we have noticed based on the analysis is that more sites qualify to serve summer meals based on census data. So you're a school district and you're only looking at your school boundary data, take a look at the census data. You know, there might be an opportunity for you to serve meals based on that, because you can see the difference between column 1 and column 2, how many sites are likely to be eligible. And this is just really to help us understand where the gaps are and the impact of the waivers. And if you look at San Diego, overall, based on school boundaries and area eligibility, over 100,000 kids may not have access to summer meals based on that. So I do have it broken down by sponsor, by county. So if this interests you, just reach out to me. But I thought it would just, this information will be helpful for us to understand the impact of waivers. Next slide. And lastly, even though it's not really summer meals, we did want to just announce that our CalFresh social media marketing toolkit is available. Back in January, we had a webinar together about, you know, doing CalFresh through schools in San Diego, and we promised this amazing toolkit. Well, it's up on our website. We have graphics and posts in over 13 languages for you to use for CalFresh outreach via schools. So visit our website. Everything's on there. Again, you can save, you can modify it, make it your own. You can add your logo. We're really flexible when it comes to all that kind of stuff. And I think that is all for me. I'll be around for a few minutes or answer any questions in the chat if there are any, but then I unfortunately have to jump off early for today.
Thank you, Daisy. You did get one question in the chat. I believe it's from Eric Span in Sweetwater. Has your been pulled by school district for summer sites?
It's pulled by sponsor, so we will be able to have it if as the school district as a sponsor. We will have it for 2021. So yes, Amanda. And we looked at all the community sponsors and school districts and charters that were sponsors for summer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And someone else says, great job, San Diego. Oh, that's Amanda Schultz too. Great job, San Diego, for all those summer sites.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda, for keeping track of the chat. And thank you, Daisy. Good luck at your first in-person meeting in 2 years. Very exciting. Okay, so let's kick it over to Jen McNeil with Lunch Assist.
All right, thank you. Thanks so much for having me here, and welcome everyone. And thanks, Daisy, for sharing all those great resources. I love the new text flyers, which are updated. So we'll be sharing those with our network as well. We appreciate you guys putting those together. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen from Lunch Assist. And if you don't know us, Lunch Assist is an organization with 2 female founders who trains and supports school lunch heroes. And we're really excited to be here. And I'm also a former director from San Diego County, so I have a special place in my heart for this Hunger Coalition call. So thanks again for having us today. I'm going to talk through a couple of summer area eligibility pieces, and then give you a couple of checklists and a couple of resources just for moving into the summer. And first off, oh, sorry, you might hear my daughter in the background. She's with her dad if you hear a crying Lola. So the first thing I'll talk about is the area eligibility. So just building upon at what Daisy was just mentioning. So there are 4 ways, well, there's multiple ways, but these are just 4 of the ways that I'm sharing here on the screen that you can look at the SFSP and SSO area eligibility for summer 22. And there's a couple of new ways that you might not know about. So I'm going to pop a new USDA policy memo into the chat here. So this covers the items 1 and 2 that are on the screen here. So as Daisy mentioned, there's a lot of sites that are not going to be area eligible this summer. However, the item 1, I really encourage you to take a look at if you're finding that some of your sites are not area eligible. Check out using your identified student percentage. Sorry, I don't know why it says population there. Your ISP, your identified student percentage times 1.6. And if that's over 50%, that can help you become area eligible for meals this summer only. It's just a special flexibility for this summer only, and it's outlined in that Q&A or in that memo. So just an example, if you had an ISP of 31.25, which is actually too low to qualify for CEP. So that's why it's a little bit of a funky method, because it's like, even if you don't qualify for CEP, you might be able to use this method to qualify some of your sites. And this is by individual site. You can't use it as a group, unfortunately, but if your ISP was 31.25, multiply it by 1.6, you got 50% free. That means that your sites are area eligible. So that's really good. I know for us, we've worked with some of the schools that we consult with, and they were, struggling because they weren't area eligible. And then we did that, and we're like, oh my gosh, you're area eligible now. So it's really good. Take a look at that. And then you see the other ones here on the screen. Using your 2019-20 free and reduced application data is also an option if you haven't taken a look at that option yet. And then the attendance area, I just want to point this one out because we had a couple of schools who were a little bit confused on item 3. So this is an existing method, but just sometimes people get a little tripped up, because essentially what it means when you're looking at this one is you could have an individual school site, right, that is not area eligible, or that is not over 50% free and reduced. So let's say we have a school that's like 25% free and reduced, but then just like down the street, there's another school that is over 50% free and reduced and is area eligible. If the first school is in the same attendance area, then you can extend that area eligibility to the first school. So the easiest way for me to think about that is to think like, okay, if I lived next door to the school that's not area eligible, what other like middle, high school, elementary school could I go to in that attendance area? And if one of those schools is area eligible, then you can extend that to the first school. This is really helpful for like charter schools and, an elementary school where the middle school next door might be area eligible, but the existing school is under 50%. You can extend that area eligibility to them. So those are just a few of the methods that might kind of build upon what you can do this summer. Okay, then we have a couple of options if you're not area eligible. And I know that Gurjeet and Katie are going to share a little bit more about this stuff. So these are just like a couple of, and also Katie, I know I said this earlier, but thank you again for some of the guidance that you've been helping us with and help kind of flesh out some of these questions. So there are a few options if your sites are not area eligible. So first of all, if your sites are not area eligible and you have an academic summer program, then the schools cannot serve under SSO, but they can serve under the school lunch and breakfast program if it's an academic program. Now you may be thinking that you have to charge for meals, and while you have the option to charge for meals, there's also options to not charge for meals and cover the cost of those meals with the cafeteria fund. So again, this might not be something that the schools have the budget for, but some schools would. And so it's just nice to know what your options are. And so a couple of things here. We have breakfast. So there is a provision for a universal breakfast that is not tied to being on CEP or provision 2. USDA basically doesn't have a minimum price for breakfast. So you do need to get approval from CDE, and I'll pop the application in the chat as well. And that was courtesy of Katie earlier today. So thanks again, Katie. So if you want to charge $0 for breakfast, then you can do that. And then just make sure you get this approved with your analyst and ignore the July 1st deadline. That's not relevant for this year. Reduced price meals can also be charged at $0. That's always been kind of an allowable thing for the past many moons. So go ahead and consider charging $0 for your reduced price meals. Again, you can cover the cost of this with a cafeteria fund. And then paid lunches. So paid lunches has been one where people are like, you know, we have paid lunch equity. We're supposed to be charging for paid lunches. However, there are paid lunch equity exemptions for school year 21-22 and school year 22-23. You do have to qualify for that. So you can work with your CDE analyst to submit a paid lunch equity waiver and or a paid lunch equity exemption. And basically, if you had a positive fund balance on December 31st of 2021 and December 31st of 2020, you can have $0 for lunches served in June and July and August. So those are just like a couple of like tips and tricks, little hacks to help you through the policy, or, you know, navigating these charges. And yeah, definitely. I see Eric mentioned, it concerns me that you would need district administration to sign off on providing meals for free if you don't have the funds from the general funds. Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely not something that everyone can do, but it's just something that if you're feeling like it's going to be really confusing to families to charge them, and your district has the money either through the cafeteria fund or the general fund or a combination of the two, then these are just options. Otherwise, you can charge as normal if you aren't area eligible, which is not, I know none of this is really a great option. It's just some extra food for thought here. And then another thing, just at the very bottom of the slide here that you might want to consider is that this couple of things regarding the state meal mandate. So again, if you're having an academic summer program at a site that's not area eligible, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. So first off, the state meal mandate this summer only requires one meal to be served, and that meal can be breakfast. So that's something that you might consider doing. I know that's what we used to do when I was the director in Encinitas, just because we don't really have the bandwidth to do a full-on program in the summer. And then finally, there's also a waiver or an exemption to the state meal mandate that you can apply for. And so that is something we can share in the links here. And it's just something that you can consider if you have, there's two reasons that you can get approved for this. What I've really seen it only getting approved for usually is if there's a nearby site that has a summer program that's open. So if you have like a site that's very close that has an open summer program, then you may be able to kind of get out of having summer meals at your academic summer program and refer families to that nearby site. So just a couple of things that you might not know about, and just kind of sharing those for you. And then next, this is like the worst news of all. Basically, if you have an ELOT program, which I know a lot of people are offering, which is basically enrichment only, if it's not tied to some other academic program, then there's really not a lot of options. And I know Gurjeet and Katie will probably share a bit more about this, but basically if it's a non-academic summer program, like enrichment only, then there's really not, and you're not area eligible, then there's really not great options for serving reimbursable meals. And it's probably going to be more of like a catering situation if you're asked to provide meals with like the general fund pitching in. The good news is that I did hear that you could use, like the districts could use ELOT funds to help pay for meals. So you might ask your district about that. But as far as like a reimbursable, you know, USDA child nutrition program, if it's enrichment only and you're not area eligible, there's not a whole lot of options there. Okay, so I'll just share a couple of resources before passing the mic. So first off, we have a free end of year checklist. I'll pop that into the chat. This is something that can help you just sort of checking off some of these to-dos and like getting things organized for the end of the year and moving into the summer. And on the next slide, I just have like a couple of kind of reminders moving into summer. So it sounds like the CNEP applications are open now. I know Vince has sent out an email to all of his sites to go ahead and complete those. One thing that we see a lot of people forgetting to do is that the summer food service program promotion is required of all SFAs, regardless of if you offer the summer food service program. So even if you offer SSO, you have to promote the SFSP. So that can be a little bit confusing and often missed until you get a review and they ask for that evidence. So don't forget, those flyers that Daisy shared are a great way to meet this requirement. So if you just share those on social media or post them on your website, then you meet the requirement. And then make sure, even though professional standards are waived, make sure you complete your civil rights training. And yeah, there's lots of other things on that checklist, so take a look at that. And then we will have kind of like a very kind of quick and dirty run through of some of the universal meals regulations, what you need to know for your kit funding. So feel free to join us on June 9th at 1:30. I know that CDE is also offering similar sessions. So this is you know, meant to supplement, not supplant the CDE sessions. We're just going to run through some really fast and furious tips and tricks to kind of get you through and sorted with some of the universal meals and kit funding. So feel free to join us on June 9th at 1:30. And then finally, I just always have to plug our membership. If you're not already a member of Lunch Assist Pro, feel free to join. This is a great way to spend on some of your kit funds and get access to some really wonderful training in English and Spanish. So feel free to join and inquire with us for more information. We're also partnering with the world-class chefs at Brigade, who are going to be offering more culinary training on the membership this year. So it's really exciting. And then finally, all of this, what we shared is all kind of like based under the assumption that the waivers are ending on June 30th. And I know Mauricio is going to share a little bit more about this, but you know, we really encourage you to do your best Lady Gaga impression and call your Congress people to advocate for HR 6613 and S3979. And I know Mauricio, you're going to share more on this. So I will pass the mic over to Amanda.
Amanda, do we have any questions in the chat?
A great presentation, Jen. In fact, we're hearing from Eric at Sweetwater and Mr. Josh in Oceanside that, you know, your section about general funds and summer meals would be great to pitch to superintendents directly. So if you're okay, we might, you know, like edit just that portion of your recording so that they could share with superintendents.
Oh, thank you guys. Yeah, absolutely. We're always happy to share whatever makes things easier on the school nutrition directors. That's what we're all about. So please feel free to share our contact information. And if there's anything we can do to help or come on another countywide call, just let us know.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And our meeting minutes and recordings also go out to over 500 people. So we'll be sure to share it far and wide. And Katie says, great presentation, Jen. So Mutual Admiration Society.
I also wish that I looked this fabulous calling my congressperson. Thank you so much, Jen. And we are going to hand it over to CDE. Let me stop sharing so they can share their slides.
Thanks, Ashley, and thanks, Jen. That's actually a really good kind of segue into my presentation. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gurjeet Barayah. I'm a manager at the CDE Nutrition Services. You've probably seen my face far too often on Zoom over the course of the last year. I'm joined today by Katie Tully. Katie, believe it or not, is not the manager of everything, although she has done just about everything over the last 2 years. Katie is our interim summer meals manager. Her regular job is resource management, and then she's also a wizard of school nutrition programs. So very, very grateful to have Katie on, and she is truly the expert, but trying to take a couple things off of her plate and support her today. So I'll spend just, you know, kind of this very first slide, really, the Lady Gaga meme was presented it a lot better than how I've presented it here. But really the kind of the takeaway is that, like Jen mentioned, you know, USDA does not have congressional authority to extend those nationwide waivers that families and children have benefited from so much during COVID. And it really does limit what state agencies are able to ask for, and the flexibilities that local operators can provide. I will give credit. Our federal partners have, over the last couple of weeks, have tried to streamline some of the processes for states to be able to request state-specific waivers, but there are limitations, and Jen laid it out. The big one is that we have to demonstrate that the waiver does not increase the cost to the federal program. We are also not able to request flexibilities for the meal pattern. And then the implementation of these waivers really has to be tied to COVID-19. So the expectation is that operations are impacted by COVID, and that's why these waivers are available. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the waivers that we have already gotten approved for summer, a couple that we're waiting on, and then I'll kind of bring it home with some of the area eligibility flexibility that we finally got some written guidance on. So first things first, so approved summer meal waivers. So the USDA has given CDE and state agencies some flexibility in how we conduct reviews for the summer food service program. So if you're a school district or a local operator and you drew the golden ticket of having a summer food service program administrative review this summer, the likelihood is that that review will be conducted offsite and will be conducted remotely, just in the way that we've done kind of throughout COVID times. The other flexibility that USDA gave us, which we're also very grateful for, is for new sites that are coming on, new agencies that are applying. We're required to do pre-approval visits. We're also going to continue to conduct those remotely. So those will be done offsite for this summer. For local operators, there's also some added flexibility around some of the monitoring requirements. So you may recall that those summer food service program sites have to conduct a local level visit in that first week. That requirement has been waived, but you still have to conduct a review within that first month. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility around the timing. The one stipulation to this particular waiver is that it's only available to experienced sponsors that did not have any kind of significant operational problems in previous reviews. So I will say that the vast majority, like 98, 99% of folks will be able to utilize this waiver, but the handful of folks that will be limited on this, we're doing some direct outreach to just let agencies know that, hey, unfortunately, we're not able to offer this waiver. And that was just the contingency of USDA's approval of this one. We do also have some flexibility around the data sources that we use to determine area eligibility for closed enrolled sites. So those closed enrolled sites still have to establish area eligibility, but you can utilize school or census data. The key thing here is that the requirement to specifically use meal application data has been waived. So if you're a school where you guys, a lot of schools based on verification reporting were really leaning heavily on alternative income forms. Those are an acceptable way to establish area eligibility for those closed sites. And this flexibility extends both for seamless summer as well as for summer food service program sites. We also have flexibility around meal service time restrictions. So the amount of time that has to elapse between meals, as well as the duration of meal times, those requirements are also waived. That doesn't mean that you don't have to update CNIPs though. So, this is, and I know we spoke to it earlier in terms of, it's very, and I feel like I say this all the time, CNIPS is that main data source for so many different resources. This is where we report data to USDA. This is where we report data to No Kid Hungry. This is where families go to find out when can I go get a meal. And so you still have to establish a meal service time in CNIPS. And if that time changes over the summer, we really ask you have to go in and you have to update that. If we rely on locals, there's no way for us to know if the breakfast time at a school site has changed unless we've been notified by an agency. And so that's just my plug to please update those, and then we'll make sure that that data gets out to everybody that's also helping to help with the marketing and the outreach of those programs. This meal service time flexibility also does apply both for summer and for summer food service program and for seamless summer option. We have a couple waivers that we are still awaiting USDA approval on. So this is a waiver request that we submitted, oh gosh, I think a little I want to say over 2 weeks ago now, has not yet been approved. But specifically, we are asking for the ability for schools to be able, or summer sites to offer non-congregate feeding as well as parent guardian meal pickup. Again, big caveat, these have not yet been approved. We do expect that they will be, but until we get that stamp, I don't like to count on that until we have it in writing from USDA. And then I have to reiterate, this will be limited when operations are impacted by COVID-19. So this is a part of USDA's kind of streamlined waiver process for state agencies. So we're hopeful that we'll get approval soon and we'll be able to announce that. Outside of COVID-19, we do have some other USDA waivers that we're also awaiting approval on, and that's related to really disaster situations. So poor air quality and an extreme heat. So you may recall in the before times, before COVID, that was always an option that state agencies could apply for. We've asked for that waiver. We have not gotten approval on it yet. It's been with USDA for some time, but that is going through their normal, what they call their 12L process. It's not a part of the streamlined. But what we're asking for is for the non-congregate and mealtime flexibility when extreme heat or poor air quality conditions exist. And they're slightly different because one would be because of COVID, but another could be because, hey, there's a wildfire, or we have an extreme heat situation and we're not able to really serve meals in a congregate setting in a safe way because of that. So same waiver, same flexibility, but for different reasons. And then Jennifer touched on this as well. So area eligibility flexibility. So this was actually something that USDA announced verbally, gosh, I want to say about 3 weeks ago. I've been around long enough to know that it's important to wait until they put flexibilities in writing. The devil is always in the details. So we did get a policy memo last Thursday from USDA spelling out some of that flexibilities for area eligibility. And really kind of twofold. So the first option, it just allows schools to be able to use, school year 1920 free and reduced price meal data to determine area eligibility. And the caveat, of course, is that it's only effective through summer of 2024. So if you guys have been to our CDE webpage where you have the data sources, we do have prior year data there that you can rely on to establish. If for some reason you're not area eligible now, you could look to that prior year. And then the other option, as Jen spelled out, is also the CEP ISP. So it's when you calculate your ISP, if it's 50% or greater, then that can be used to establish area eligibility. But the kicker here is it's only effective through summer of 2022. So it's just, again, very limited. We are working on a listserv announcement kind of coming out to give some guidance. But generally what we're going to be asking for folks is, if you're going to use one of the flexibilities, to reach out to your specialists and work with them. So that way we're notating, hey, this was the data source that's used. Because one of the things we always tell USDA is, hey, CNIPs can't be updated overnight to have a field that says we used CEP ISP for area eligibility. So we're developing some workarounds, and just to make sure that everything is notated properly within CNIPs. And so that kind of wraps up kind of my component, but I know we were talking actually before this webinar started that there's so many topics that we present on. So we do have a couple of our own webinars coming up. So actually tomorrow afternoon is our next Universal Meals listening session. And this one actually is going to take the format of more of a state update. So you'll get to hear a lot of my voice, but we're going to talk, kind of give an overview of Universal Meals, but talk more broadly about different topics within school nutrition programs that are going to be impacted by the Universal Meal Update. And then a week from tomorrow, we'll have our next town hall state update, which will also include a guest speaker. So both of these next two sessions are 90 minutes. And then once I get done speaking here, I'll drop a number of links into the chat. The last thing I'll just kind of leave off with on this last slide. So we do have our general email boxes for the summer food service program and the seamless summer option. highly encourage you, highly encourage you if you have questions, to reach out to your program specialists, right? We have a team of, gosh, I think it's almost 20 staff between the summer and the schools teams to support. If you send an email to me and it takes me a couple days to get back, it's, I'm only one person and Katie's only one person. And so just really encourage you, if you have questions or if you're not getting a response, you feel like in a timely manner, you can reach out to the general boxes, and those are monitored by staff, around the clock during business hours. So that kind of wraps up. I see some activity in the chat, but I'm not able to see it because I'm doing a screen share. So I'll stop sharing.
So Gurjeet, I have like 3 questions for you so far. So I'm gonna kick them off. So when it comes to area eligibility data, is there any like best data source when it comes to census versus FRPM versus ISP?
I don't know if I would use best, but kind of like a hierarchy, right? Like what's the easiest data to kind of validate, right? And I would say the easiest is probably going to be the FRPM, right? So I'll drop a link to our CDE webpage that has it's the unduplicated data, right? That's data that's submitted by LEAs and it's validated by the department, so it's easy to go in and just say click, find the school site. From there, I'd say census data probably is the second tier. And then we would go to the flexibilities, right? And just because of the timing of the expiration, I'd put that 1920 free and reduced price data kind of at number 3, and then the CEP ISP at number 4. We do, and again, I'll put this in the chat as well. We do have a CEP training video that kind of talks through how to calculate that CEP ISP. It's not rocket science, but we do often see mistakes when we're doing validations of CEPs. So it's just making sure that when you're including those counts, that you're including the correct count, right? It's direct certification, but it's direct certification for free meals, doesn't include Medi-Cal reduced. So some nuances, and if folks are looking to use that CEP ISP to establish, I would just take the 10 minutes to watch the video, and it really does walk you through step by step.
Thank you for
yes,
that.
Emily. Yeah, that's correct. I think I may have had a typo on that last slide. It should be SSFO.
Okay, then we have 2 questions stemming off of the outstanding waivers that you were talking about, the non-congregant and parent guardian pickup. So when it comes to those waivers, like if they get approved, they're only able to be used if there is a COVID impact. And one of the questions in the chat was, is there any definition of what constitutes an impact by COVID?
There's not, right? And so this is an instance where, USDA, I think, is giving some latitude to local operators because, the COVID impact, it really is, down to within community levels, right? I mean, I know there's state level data, there's county level data, but local operators are really the ones that are best able to determine, if, you have to ask yourself, is there something going on in my area that would make congregate meal service unsafe, right? So USDA is not defining that, but
okay.
What we're asking and kind of the documentation, have an explanation for, what was the COVID impact that required for you to serve meals in a non-congregate manner.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And then Eric, I want to make sure I'm getting your question. So Eric Span from Sweetwater had a question. When it comes to open sites, will those waivers allow students or children to eat off campus?
Yeah, that's exactly what the non-congregate feeding would be, right? So, and the only thing I would change, Eric, is not families, right? It's the children that are eating the meals. But yeah, it can be consumed off campus, if, congregate feeding can't happen because of COVID.
So to follow up on that question, we used to do a few years ago, we would serve our students on campus, and then we would set up a little bit afterwards to do a period of time where we would serve the community children 18 and under. We would provide meals to that they were required to eat those meals on campus. So we can still do that daily, where families can come, pick up the meals, take them home daily. I know that we're not going to be able to like do bulk meals for families like we were doing right in the middle of COVID, but I just want to make sure those community member children, 18 and under, can still come onto our campus after we feed our students, pick up meals, and then they can take them home.
Yeah, the non-congregate is not, it's not limited to site types or anything like that. So again, as long as there's a COVID impact at the site, the non-congregate is an option. When it comes to the bulk feeding, where, you know, we were given verbal guidance that there will be Q&As coming, updated Q&As coming, until we get those, you know, I don't know, but I think the safe assumption would be no unless yes.
And I think Barbara Hughes from our county HHSA also had a question that is covered. So Barbara, your question was covered by that answer, and we can get into that in State of the Plate. So for a novel idea to get meals to residences, it sounds like it would require both the non-congregate waiver and possibly a parent or guardian pickup and an impact of COVID to have that happen. Is that correct, Gurjeet?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other takers, any other outstanding questions out there? And they do need to be on topic. I know people could be rascally. It needs to be about summer.
I had one
Yes.
more clarification just on the, I just put in the chat too, but like, so even after June 30th, then like, as long as there's community transmission of COVID, like a daily non-congregate kind of grab and go meal for parents who are picking up for their kids, that would be allowable. And
Yeah,
as long as,
so
yeah, okay.
Non-congregate feeding is allowable so long as congregate feeding is impacted by COVID-19. So it, you know, the COVID is creating, you know, is impacting food operations and is not a, you know, doesn't make that conducive. So
I'm just going to jump in and say it because in our community, COVID is on the uprise. It's going back up. And so I'm just going with that information.
that would be a very reasonable way to demonstrate why non-congregate feeding is needed, because yes, you know, COVID cases are increasing.
All right, you're off the hot seat, Gurjeet. Thank you for your graciousness as always. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, yes, thank you so much. And we are ready to kick it over to Mauricio Medina, our Public Affairs Manager, to offer a call to action. Mauricio.
Thanks, Ashley, and thanks to the A-Team for inviting me to speak here to the Hunger Free Kids Task Force. I think we heard pretty clearly from our previous presenters, Gurjeet and Jen, about some of the impacts that we might see because of the USDA's authority to issue nationwide waivers is set to expire on June 30th, unless there's a congressional action. And thankfully, there is a congressional action out in the universe. There's a bill that would do just that, and that's HR 6613, or Keep the School Meals Flexible Act. And this extends the authority that the USDA has that's set to expire on June 30th of 2022. It extends it to June 30th of 2023. Next slide. So I think there are about like 12 waivers that are going to expire. Gurjeet went over a few of those, but some of those include like meal pattern flexibility, CACFP specific meal pattern flexibility, and mealtime requirements. So this bill we see as crucial to kind of, recognizing that COVID-19 pandemic is not over, and really just the negative externalities of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Like the supply chain shortages and other factors that are really impacting our schools to feed children. We need those extended, and the pandemic doesn't end on June 30th of this year, right? So what can we do? Next slide. So thankfully, we have not a heavy of a lift, but some of our local representatives here, Congressman Levin and Congressman Jacobs, have signed on to be a co-sponsor of this bill. A co-sponsorship just means that they've signed on saying, yes, we're on board, very clearly and very publicly. So Congressman Levin and Congressman Jacobs, we're very grateful for them. If you ever see them, issue that positive reinforcement, give them a thank you, and maybe share why it's so important. But we still have some other work to do. So Congressman Daryl Issa, Congressman Peters, and Congressman Vargas have yet to sign on. So we're doing a call to action to target them specifically with phone calls. And on the next slide, we issued a script for you to use, as well as the phone numbers for the district. Very simple. Say your name, say your role, and who you're calling. And be sure to also highlight the number of the bill. A lot of congressional staff, don't really remember the name, but they remember the number. So HR 6613, if that's all you can get across. And yeah, very simple, low-hanging fruit for you. We really encourage you to call this week. I think June 30th is basically tomorrow. So please call as soon as you can. And that's, I think, the end of my slides. I can answer any questions if needed, or yeah. Right. Thanks, 18.
Thanks, Mauricio.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting there. Thank you so much, Mauricio. We wanted to, Amanda, if you could stop the recording. We wanted to open it up